Welcome back all. So today we're going to go ahead and give our application an ability to create logs so that we may see when was the account created or when was it deleted or something like that. We will make our own log service. However, we will primarily use console logs. What are console logs? Well, every single browser has them. I have different shortcuts for them. These are like my chapters on the on the local web server here. And if you basically just press F12, there you go. These are console logs. Here I can go to the Angular website, and there you go. You get some sort of an output here. What exactly you get? Well, I don't know. You basically will be able to specify. You will be passing messages, and depending on the messages that are passed, those are the sort of logs that will be printed out here. But we would like to be able to store those logs and to manipulate them, and we would like to have more control over the logging process itself. So we will have our own service. And that's not the primary reason, actually. The primary reason for us having our own logging service is because we don't want to go through every individual part of the application and actually call the logging service here, the built-in one. Rather, instead, we want to have our own logging service where we use the built-in system for logging, and then we just keep on calling our own utility, which we can modify and change in any way we like, meaning that we only need to create modifications in one place and they will be applied across the board throughout our application. So, the very first thing that we need to do is basically right click on app and click on, not new file, sorry. Right click on app, we need a new folder. New folder, and the new folder name will be util, so util. And then within util, we're going to go ahead and create a new file, and this new file will be called basically logger.service.ts. Logger.service.ts. And did I spell that right? Hopefully I did. Excellent, so you got it here. Let me just copy paste this code here, and then I'll explain it. Excellent. So most of the code you know here. So we're just importing injectable. I've talked about this extensively before, and then we're making this class injectable, and we're also exporting the class. All of these things have been done before. So this is a logger service class. But down below, there is a method, and this method is public method. It's called log, and it receives a variable of type string, so a variable called MSG. And then it's calling a built-in function console.log, and we're passing a message to that, a string basically, to that console.log, which in turn is printed out onto the console of the browser, the one that I have showed you a moment ago. You open up your browser, you open up a website and press F12, and you can see the logs. Basically, you reload the site one more time to actually see the actual logs. Okay, so this will be our logging service, our logger service. Here we're gonna perform all sorts of modifications. As I said, this part has been explained before more than once, and the only new thing here is actually this console.log built-in method. Every browser has this ability. If you can find a browser that doesn't, well, wow. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on. So we need to go into the account.service.ts. So let's go there. Oops. Let me just save this file. Close this. Actually, let's close everything and I just reopen this file. Excellent. So there was one new thing that we have imported here. So optional is a decorator, which basically states that the injected parameter, basically here, that the injected parameter will be optional. So if it's not initialized, it will basically be set to null. It won't give us the error message. Rather, instead, it will just be set to null. Why are we doing this? Well, because we would like to have control over the logs, whether they are created or not, whether or not the logging process is actually taking place or not. And so if we initialize it, great, log. If we do not initialize it, don't crash, don't give an error, just continue, and that's it. That's why we have created this constructor here, and so that we would be able to inject this service. So you have a logger service here, and that we could use it. Basically, the optional, oops, my mouse seemed to be running away. The optional decorator here, the one basically that I described a moment ago, that makes this parameter actually optional, whether initialized or not. We need it here because we didn't provide the logger service anywhere here. You can see that we didn't really do anything with it. We didn't specify it, we didn't initialize, we didn't perform anything with it. We've just stated it here, and it's not going to work, not just yet. But because you have @optional here, this is not a mandatory thing. And notice that I've written here private in front of the private variable logger. What does this mean? Well, if you go to the, which one was it? Is it app component? Let me just scroll down and find it. There we go. So as you can see, you have the constructor, and then you have account service of type account service, and we had to put it into an actual variable because it doesn't exist outside of this constructor. However, this one, because simply due to the fact that it's private, it actually exists outside of this constructor and can be used. Basically, this is the equivalent of me writing this. Private logger. So it exists outside. Just because I've stated that it's private, it's just a handy trick so you don't have to store it in a different variable which is actually defined outside. Anyway, if you go down we go, and just under the remove, there we go. So it says, okay, yeah, these two are the same. So it says there's an if condition here. It says if it's a public method create. So within the create method, we're giving the ability for the log files to be created, for the logging process to actually take place. It says if, and then it's pointing to the logger private variable. So if this is null, that means it's going to be false. So this condition will be evaluated as false, and this here will not occur. However, if the logger is initialized with anything other than 0 or null, then this condition will be evaluated as true, and we will have a log printed out. It will be account created, and then the title of the account. We could add more and more things here. The same logic applies here, basically. If uninitialized, do nothing. This is not going to happen. If initialized, okay, go ahead and create a log that the account has been deleted. Okay, so for the time being, I'm going to bid you farewell, and we shall see each other in the follow-up tutorial, hopefully.